Good morning, St. Timothy, and welcome to this time where we're going to hear a little bit more about Pastor Tony, who's coming to serve here at St. Timothy, get to know him, hear about his story and his life and his family. And just because it's kind of a weird time right now that we're living in where you might not be able to meet him and shake his hand and see him in person. And so we wanted to offer this video so you can get to know him and see his face and hear his voice. And so you're not surprised the first Sunday that he shows up on your computer screen or your phone screen. So Tony, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And I thought we'd just start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe your background, where you're from, anything you want to share that we could just get to know you a little bit.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for doing this. We're in strange times, and I appreciate this idea of how I can get to know the congregation a little better, or at least they can get to know me. I appreciate you for putting this together, coming up with the idea. I was raised in Louisiana, in the southern part of the state. People may be familiar with the term Cajun. I come from the Cajun background. I come from deep south in the bayou. My dad is a Cajun. My mom is half Cajun. And so that was a big influence in my life. We moved a lot all around South Louisiana. My dad worked in the oil field. And so wherever there was a rig, we often moved to be close to him. And so we moved a lot. I think I went to 13 schools in 12 years. So it really prepared me to be a Methodist pastor.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's see what I can say about. Grew up in Louisiana, went to high school there in Lafayette, graduated from Karen Crow High School in Lafayette, Louisiana. Panther fans may know Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, I was about to say the Raging Cajun.
The Raging Cajun. Yeah, Jake Delhomme grew up about 15 miles away from where I did. And so he's a little bit younger than I am. I watched him play high school ball at the local Catholic school. He played football there at the college in our hometown. And then, went on to play for the Saints and then the Panthers. And so I actually moved to North Carolina the same year he did.
Oh, wow.
And so I became a Panthers fan because of him.
Yeah.
I left the Saints behind, became a Panthers fan.
We also have Bojangles here. So we have lots of Cajun stuff here. So you're going to get along fine.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. Actually, my wife's giving me some because they're not moving right away, that I cannot stop and eat at fast food. I've got to go on a diet. But there's so many places between the parsonage and the church that I can stop.
Yeah. I think they call it like fast food alley or row or something like that. We just got the cookout and, now there's a drive-through Starbucks. So it's.
Oh, man. Don't tell me about drive-through Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, it just I haven't even been there. It just opened right in the middle of the pandemic. So I haven't even been there. But that was big news. So. So Tony, were you involved in church growing up? Was that a big influence on you, or tell us a little bit about what, your church life growing up?
Yeah. So I sort of had an unusual church life in that I come from 4 grandparents that all came from 4 different faith backgrounds. So my grandfather on my paternal side, my paternal grandfather was Catholic. Actually, he returned from World War II and got divorced right away. And in the Catholic Church, at that time, he couldn't even attend and partake in the Mass. And so, but he grew up Catholic, and all of his family was Catholic. My paternal grandmother, was raised in the Church of Christ. And so she had that background. But her family had also been Catholic. Almost everyone in Louisiana has a Catholic background. So the Catholic Church really influenced me. On my mom's side, my maternal grandmother was Pentecostal, and my grandfather was Baptist. And so I actually spent time growing up in all of those churches. We normally attended a Baptist church or a Church of Christ with my mom and dad. That changed depending on where we were living. And, a lot of reasons on that. But we spent a lot of time in Pentecostal churches. I probably went to Mass at least once a month. With friends or with family members. So church was important for us. How we went to church was a little different than most people because of our moving around and spending a lot of time with family attending church where they attended.
Yeah, I was about to say I didn't hear Methodism in there anywhere. So where did that come into the picture? How did you get involved in
Yeah.
the Methodist Church?
So I was actually became part of Methodist Church. I was living in Denver, Colorado, working out there. I was doing seismic work, and we had an office in Denver. I started volunteering at the local men's shelter, Denver Rescue Mission, and one of the directors there belonged to Trinity United Methodist Church, downtown Denver. It's a big, high church, big pipe organ church, kind of like Myers Park. It actually
Yeah.
reminds me of Myers Park. And he invited me to come to a men's Bible study there. And then he took me to a jazz service. They had a Thursday night jazz worship service. And this was in the early 90s. That was something I'd never been a part of. I just loved the feel of the service, but also the theology. I think the big tent, sort of my background was big tent. John Wesley had sort of taken the best of some of the other denominations I was a part of, and sort of melded into a practical theology. And I fell in love with that because I felt at home. It took the best of Catholicism, the best of Pentecostalism, and it was all there. They talked about the Holy Spirit. They talked about Christ. They talked about actually living out your faith. And so I thought, yeah, this is something I want to be a part of. And some of that was I'd always felt a calling to be in ministry. I ran from it. My grandmother told me when I was really young, now she's the Pentecostal, so a lot of prayer and goes into it. And she'd spent a lot of time praying for me. And when I was about 16 and I was pretty wild, she stopped me one day. She says, you know, you have a calling on your life, right? So what do you mean? She goes, you're called to be a pastor. And I kind of laughed it off, but it was the truth. I knew that. I always knew that was where I was supposed to be. It's just, I'd never seen a pastor like me. I'd never seen someone who fit what I thought I was. And so I'm like, well, God can't use me, that he can't use the person I am. So went through life and went through a lot of different churches. The funny thing is every time I was a part of a church for any period of time, I always ended up teaching. I always ended up teaching a Bible study or small group study. How I ended up at the Denver Rescue Mission was leading a Bible study there, and then teaching, preaching actually at times they have an evening service before they feed people, and I'd be asked to come and preach. And so as this kept happening, I really pushed back against that call. To be honest, I had dropped out of college a couple of times and had returned to college in midlife. Erin and I had met, we met out in Wyoming. She wanted to move back to North Carolina. I knew coming back to North Carolina, I needed a degree to do the things I was doing out West, and went back to college in the middle of a philosophy class at a state university at UL Lafayette. The professor, who happened to be an Assemblies of God ordained minister, but was a doctor of philosophy, stopped a class I was in. I was arguing with another student, a debate on the Bible. Bible as philosophy was the class. And he looked at me, he said, Tony, you're called to ministry. You need to go to seminary. And I kind of just stopped and looked at him. I said, I know. And then at that moment, the Lord just started working on me. And when I called my family to talk to them about it, they all said, we all know, you just don't know. And so that was how I became Methodist. That's the way I came into got to go to seminary. I started putting some, I don't know, I started testing God with that. I said, hey, if I'm going to do this, then I want to go to a Christian college to finish my last couple of years of school. I went back to school because I dropped out of school so many times. I had to retake a lot of courses I'd taken already just to make the grades up. And so I still had 2 years left. And I said, okay, if you can get me into a Christian college with the way things have been, then I'll go. And I went to Montreat College outside of Asheville, where Erin was living. That was a huge influence. The idea of having Billy Graham, a quarter of a mile above the dorm I was living in, and looking down on me, and meeting Mrs. Graham a few times had an influence. And then I said, well, if I can get into Duke, and I told my wife, there's no way I'll get into Duke Divinity, not with my background. I'm middle-aged and dropped out of school so many times, and I got early admissions. So I said, okay, I think I know what I'm supposed to do. And that was I know you have a question, but I want to say going to Duke was just something that changed me.
Mm.
I had read a lot of the theologians who were actually became my teachers, and to be able to, reading a book, you think these people are so far off and just untouchable, and then you walk in a classroom and there's Jeffrey Wainwright, and he's talking about the little chappie, and just to sit at his feet, or Warren Smith. I love history and I love biblical history, and he was somebody I'd read. Heisenreiter, as I got into Methodism, he was sort of the guru at the time in the into the last century, and I couldn't believe I was walking into this place where these people were. Not only walking on campus, I remember walking on campus every day from the parking lot where I parked, and you walk in and you're looking at the chapel and going, I can't believe I'm here. I'm a swamp rat from Louisiana, and I'm walking on Duke campus, and I'm walking into Duke Divinity School and get to sit at the feet of all these great theologians.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience for me too. Of course, I went to college at UNC, so Duke was a little bit. I didn't quite feel like that. I also did not know. I mean, I came right out of college, so I didn't know any of those names or professors or anybody. I just knew my grandfather went to Duke in the 50s to seminary, and my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, Alicia, was working in Chapel Hill. And so Duke was a good geographical fit for seminary. So that's, kind of why I went there. And but once you get there, you realize, like, not only does Duke Divinity School have one or two kind of professors who are really important in their field, but I mean, they have dozens of world-renowned scholars and academic theologians that other people from around the country and the world come to Duke to study under these people and write dissertations. And that was something I learned while I was there. And so but I also discovered that these people, like, Stanley Hauerwas, who was on the cover of Time magazine, and all these other people, are people of deep prayer and people of the church. And they really felt like it was their job to prepare us for ministry in the church. It wasn't their job to teach us a bunch of intellectual theory stuff that said, church work isn't that important. You need to know that. It was about prayer and about the local church. And that's what they were there. And I love that about Duke.
Yep.
So
practical divinity. I mean, I think that's the theme of Duke was practical. I mean, meeting Hauerwas and sitting, and he touched some buttons. I mean, he pushed my buttons, but you realize that, well, being in ministry is going to get your buttons pushed.
Right.
Dealing with people press your buttons. And so, saying this, one of my most influential was somebody that I actually sat next to her in class as a student, but she was also a teacher, Lauren Winter.
Yeah.
Was actually one of my classmates. And while she was a classmate, she was teaching, because she was already finishing her doctorate in English and from Columbia, and then was coming to Duke to do Duke Divinity. She had already written a couple of books on theology, on practical theology. Mudhouse Sabbath was one of them that really influenced me. And so I got to sit in a place where not only were there theological giants sitting in front of me, I was sitting next to people. Yeah. And people I graduated with 15 years ago are now, becoming prominent theologians as well. And so it was an amazing experience. Somebody asked me, I think you asked the other day too, my favorite theologian. I said, there's no way I can pick one. Yeah. Because as a Methodist, I'm kind of like John Wesley. I kind of pick and choose out of the best of everyone. Right. And there's not, I don't know if there's anybody out there I agree totally with. Yeah. I thought I did. And then all of a sudden they go somewhere else and write something else. Yeah. But they got some great, I think the richness of Methodism is our vast theological backgrounds and the willingness for the Methodist Church to wrestle with theology, wrestle with God's word, not to just take it at face value. Here it is. This is the way everybody's always thought it was, but to wrestle with it and then to make use of it. If it's not practical, then we really don't, it's not something we concern ourselves with a whole lot. Everything we do is about using it in our everyday lives. And I think that's probably the big draw to me to Methodism and being a pastor in Methodism is that it's about living out our faith.
Right. Yeah. I love that about Wesley. I mean, we shouldn't be scared of reading or thinking or, conversing with people who are different or different ideas or theologians that we might disagree with. Those are just opportunities to deepen our faith and to do some of that work. So, and one of the things I love, and I'm excited for St. Timothy to benefit from is the fact that, you have a lot of experience doing other things in your life before you went to seminary and became a pastor. And one of the things that I believe is most of the people that I've met that either they've kind of come into ministry second career and they've done some things before, or the people who didn't grow up in church, I think those people have some of the most amazing gifts to offer the church and ministry because they just bring a different perspective than someone who maybe just grew up, in the pew every day, every Sunday morning. It's a different perspective. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more, because I don't even know that much about some of the work you did before seminary, and just tell us a little bit about some of that.
Okay.
In your life.
So I guess I mentioned I went to college a number of times and dropped out. I actually joined the Marine Corps before my parents got my first semester grades from college.
Wow.
Because I spent a little bit too much time outside the classroom. So I was a Marine. I really enjoyed that. It was the toughest thing I'd ever done physically, and probably mentally until I went to seminary. And then, so I was a Marine. I came out of the Marine Corps and went to work offshore, working on drilling rigs and production platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. I did that. The problem with that is it's a very seasonal, not seasonal fall, winter, summer, but it's very seasonal in that the price of oil fluctuates and then you get laid off a lot. I did that for a while. I managed restaurants off and on most of my adult life. It's sort of a family background came with that. So I managed restaurants. The big one people always ask about when they find out is I actually worked for Ringling Brothers and Barney Bailey's Circus.
Wow. Okay.
Kenneth Fell Productions is who I work for. Kenneth Fell Productions at the time owned Ringling Brothers. They owned Disney's World on Ice, the ice skating show, Siegfried and Roy, the show out in Vegas, and also American Gladiators.
Yes.
That was on TV. And so I worked on each of those shows for some period of time during a couple of year period. So I traveled with the circus on the circus train. I've actually gotten to ride an elephant on a circus parade.
Wow.
But everyone thinks after they get to know me, they ask, were you a clown? And no, I was not a clown. I was actually an inventory controller. I had a boring desk job. But I dated a clown at a time, at one time. But then American Gladiators, I was assistant road manager for them on the live tour that traveled around. Lived on a tour bus, for 7 months. So that was quite the experience. I learned how to deal with people, of all types of people, and living. I'm
sure.
With people from various backgrounds. It taught me a lot. So that's sort of the nutshell of what my background.
Well, I mean, I can imagine that both the restaurant industry and just all that stuff you learn in the circus, that there's a lot of stuff there that can help with church life and ministry and logistics and hospitality and all kinds of things. So that's I'm really excited for the gifts you're going to be bringing to St. Timothy.
Well, thank you.
And of course, we know that you're not the only one who is going to be involved in the life of St. Timothy. You have a family, your wife, Erin, and your two boys, Alex and Zach. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about them. And just, I know everyone here is excited about meeting them and having them a part of their life. So
the good news is Erin is from North Carolina. She's a North Carolina girl. She was born and raised in Asheville. So we're not going to be living very far from her mom and dad, who still live in Asheville. Went to Asheville High. She actually didn't go far for college. She went down to South Carolina to Wofford, a good Methodist school. She was born and raised a Methodist. And so she's my better half. I say that all the time. is my better half. We met out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. After college, she moved out there, was supposed to be out there for a season. She stayed about 5 years. I was part of that reason. She's just a wonderful lady. Her grandmother was taught home economics in high schools and actually worked for 4-H, I believe it was 4-H, teaching locals in the Asheville and Buncombe County how to can food, stuff like that. So Erin has a heart for people. Her mom ran a Western Foundation for Western North Carolina for years, raising money for nonprofits all over Mecklenburg and Western North Carolina. So Erin's background is in that. That's what her passion is. Currently, she works for Davidson College. She's the operations manager for the Davidson's HURT Hub, which is a technology and entrepreneur center. Before that, when we were at Duke, she was the office manager for the Vice Chancellor of International Affairs. And so she's one of those, I guess the best way to describe my wife is she is grace under fire. Nothing rattles her. She is always just calm and collected and full of grace, which goes with my, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. You're going to know how I feel. I'm passionate and it's out there, and she's just grace under fire. We have two incredible boys. Alex is our oldest. He's 11, and he's our deep thinker. He really is someone who loves to think about things, think things through. He likes to ponder and study and research things. He would make a great theologian if that would be his passion. And so 11, he loves sports. He's a lacrosse player, plays soccer. Our youngest, Zach, is 9. And he is our happy-go-lucky, just makes everybody laugh. He's never met a stranger. He walks in the classroom and he goes, "Here I am." And everybody comes running, and just. But he's our super athlete. Also, he loves baseball, and if he could play every sport there was year round, he would do that. He'd play multiple sports at a time. Loves to read. Loves to tell you the things he's involved in, likes to talk. So those are my two boys. Alex is going to the 6th grade. Zach's going into 4th grade.
Nice.
And so,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know everybody's excited to meet all of them and everything. As we wrap up, is there anything you want to share, either in terms of something you're passionate about in ministry or hopes and dreams, you have for St. Timothy, or just anything you want to share with the people of St. Timothy that you can, you want to share, or you want to have the opportunity to say, or just anything you want to talk about?
You're talking to a preacher. You give me that.
Well,
yeah.
I can always hit the stop recording button. So,
yeah, I guess the most important thing is, and actually I said it in a sermon this weekend, is I truly believe our job is to be the body of Christ, the hands, the feet, the mouth, whatever it takes. And that's my hope and dream for any church I go to, is that we're going to impact the community that surrounds us in ways that touch people's lives. I recognize we all have different gifts and talents, and not everybody at St. Timothy is going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to use all of our gifts and do all the things we can do to impact Brevard and the surrounding community. I love some of the things you guys are doing already. I've been excited about that. I'm excited to bring my gifts to that, but I'm excited to just find out what St. Timothy has to offer the community, and really want to become a part of that and see how I fit into that.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, it's a wonderful church. Hospitality, caring, generosity, some of the things that immediately come to mind. Just a really friendly, loving community here, and very generous and outreaching to the surrounding area. And there's so many great mission outposts around Brevard and the county, and organizations and nonprofits to connect with. I think it's going to be, I'm just really looking forward to hearing the great things that are coming out after you're here. So thank you for your time. And
Thank you.
I'm sure that everyone at St. Timothy is going to be able to welcome you. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but I hope that at least they can get to know you here on this video. And I'm sure you'll be sharing more in the days to come.
I will.
It'll be just a couple more weeks before you'll be here. So
It is.
yeah. So thanks for your time this morning. And
thank you. I appreciate you doing this.
all right. Well, take care. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.